How does one person, a single individual, manage to revolutionize not just one, but multiple industries that have been stuck in the same gear for decades? How does a once bullied, introverted kid from South Africa become the real-life Iron Man? Well, that's the incredible story we're diving into today.
Dear book lovers, welcome to another high-speed book summary episode of Summarypedia. We are here to bring you more titles in less time. So, in this episode, we're cracking open the lessons from the book Who Is Elon Musk by Phil Cooper. Now, Phil Cooper has this amazing knack for taking the lives of these huge innovators and boiling them down into lessons we can actually use. This book, in particular, is a fascinating peek inside the mind of one of the most talked about, most disruptive entrepreneurs of our time. Here's our game plan. We're going to break his journey down into 5 parts. We'll start at the very beginning, his origin story, then we'll get into his first companies and the very harsh lessons he learned. Then, the crazy gambles on SpaceX and Tesla, what we can learn from his success playbook, and finally, we'll look at the massive impact he's having. Ready? Let's go. Okay, so let's kick things off with Section 1, From Daydreams to Dollars, the origin story. This is where it all started. I mean, we're talking about a kid who was so lost in his own head, his parents were genuinely worried he was deaf. But it turns out, those daydreams, they were the blueprint for everything to come.
So this is the big question, right? How does that kid, a total bookworm, an introvert, who got picked on at school, turn into the guy who literally inspired the character of Tony Stark in the movies? The answer is that the seeds for all this were planted way, way back.
And the pace of his early life is just kind of insane. By the time he's 12, he's not just playing video games, he's coding and selling his own for $500. By 17, he makes this huge move to another continent just to chase his ambitions. And then, get this, at the height of the dot-com bubble, he drops out of a PhD program at Stanford after just 2 days because he just had to be part of the action.
And that decision to jump in brings us right to Section 2, First Ventures, Harsh Lessons. Because if there's one theme here, it's that success is never, ever a straight line. This is the part of the story where Musk makes millions, but he also learns the incredibly painful lesson that having the money and being in control are two totally different things.
With his very first company, Zip2, which was basically like an online city guide for newspapers, he hit an absolute home run. In 1999, Compaq swooped in and bought the company for a staggering $307 million. Musk's personal take, $22 million. I mean, that's a massive win by any measure.
But here's the kicker, the really harsh lesson. Even though he founded the company and wrote the original code, the board of investors just wouldn't make him the CEO. They looked at him and saw an engineer, not a leader. They even demoted him from his chairman role. Talk about a brutal lesson in business politics.
But did he quit? No. He took that money and immediately rolled it into his next big idea, a little thing called X.com, which would eventually merge and become PayPal. And the payday this time? Even bigger. In 2002, eBay bought PayPal for $1.5 billion.
You'd think everything would be different this time, right? Wrong. In a move that sounds like it's straight out of a movie, the board staged a coup and fired him as CEO while he was on his honeymoon, his first real vacation. You can't make this stuff up. So now he's unbelievably rich, but he's been kicked out of his own companies twice. So you can see the pattern here, can't you? It's this wild ride of triumph and betrayal. With Zip2, he becomes a millionaire, but loses control. With PayPal, he makes over $165 million, but gets fired by his own team. These experiences, right here, are what forged his absolute determination to never, ever give up control of his companies again. So what do? You've got all this money, but you've been pushed out of your own creations twice. Most people would buy an island and retire. But if you're Elon Musk, you take basically your entire fortune and you bet it all on 2 industries that everyone, and I mean everyone, said were impossible. Which brings us to Section 3, Gambling on Space and Electric. And this quote, this really tells you everything you need to know about his mindset. He wasn't just chasing the next hot trend. He truly believed that making humanity a multiplanetary species and speeding up the switch to sustainable energy were just too important not to try, even if failure was the most likely outcome. And man, the path for SpaceX was just brutal. The first rocket in 2006 exploded. The second one in 2007 failed. With every failure, he was getting closer and closer to being completely broke. But he and his team just would not give up. They learned from every single fiery crash. Until 2012, when they finally made history as the first private company ever to dock with the International Space Station. And at the same time, things were no easier over at Tesla. Getting the Model 3 into mass production was famously called production hell. The book talks about his intense, sometimes confrontational leadership style, where he pushed everyone, himself included, to their absolute breaking point. We're talking sleeping on the factory floor to build what the big automakers said just couldn't be done.
So this begs the question, how did he do it? How do you pull off these seemingly impossible things? Well, that brings us to Section 4, the Musk Success Playbook. And this is where the book is an absolute goldmine for anyone with a big idea, because it breaks down the core principles behind all that chaos.
Okay, first up, work like hell. And this isn't just about working hard. For him, it's a simple matter of math. His logic is, look, if other people are working 40 hours a week and you're working 100, you will get done in 4 months what it takes them a whole year to do. It's a pure mathematical advantage.
The second principle is read to lead. This famous exchange says it all, really. A reporter asked him, "How did you learn to build rockets?" His answer, "I read books." He didn't have a degree in aerospace engineering. He literally taught himself rocket science by reading textbooks. It's a huge lesson. Your ability to learn is your single greatest tool. And number 3, take risks. He's a huge believer in taking your biggest swings when you're young, before life gets more complicated. And he didn't just say this, he lived it. He put pretty much every single penny from the PayPal sale into SpaceX and Tesla, 2 companies that were almost guaranteed to fail. He learned early on that he had to bet on himself.
So you put all that together, this intense playbook and these impossible goals. And what's the result of that massive gamble? Well, that brings us to our final section, disrupting the future.
And just look at the sheer scale of it. SpaceX isn't just launching rockets, it's completely changing the cost of getting to space. Tesla isn't just making EVs, it forced the entire global auto industry to go electric. And he's using the same mindset, what he calls first principles thinking, which is just breaking a problem down to its most basic parts, on everything from city traffic with the Boring Company to brain-computer interfaces with Neuralink.
All right, so to wrap it all up, what are the key takeaways from Phil Cooper's book? First, dream big, but you have to be unbelievably tenacious. Second, understand that failure is not just an option, it's a requirement if you're really innovating. Third, don't follow trends, create them. Fourth, and this is a big one he learned the hard way, surround yourself with good people who have good hearts, not just raw talent. And finally, find a mission that's bigger than just making a profit. So, I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. What is one problem out there in the world that you think is so important it's worth trying to solve, even if all the odds are stacked completely against you?
Awesome! Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and of course, subscribe for more high-speed book summaries from us here at Summarypedia.